How to succeed working under poor leadership. Many people struggle working for those who aren't any good as leaders, or working with leaders less talented than they are. It's a source of endless frustration. Everything rises and falls on leadership. If you work for a bad leader, you probably feel like it mostly falls on you. My assumption going into this chapter is that you've already tried to be cooperative and work things out with the leader. The process I share is designed to force the issue. And I'll be very candid with you. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You have no control over that. You can only control what you do and how you respond. If everything goes well, you've made a tremendous breakthrough. If things don't go the way you hoped or planned, it may be time to move on. If you decide to stay and try to make the best of the situation, I provide a few strategies for the most common problems related to difficult leaders. I believe leaders are responsible for whom and what they lead. Bad bosses often shirk their responsibilities and try to place them on the follower, on you, and you end up carrying the load. Whenever this happens, you should, as far as it's possible, attempt to ask questions of your leader in such a way that the responsibility goes back on his or her shoulders, where it belongs. How can you succeed with a leader who is difficult to work with? If you are working for a bad or difficult leader, and you intend to try to improve the situation, you need to do your homework and go through a deliberate process to seek resolution. Though each problem is unique, the process for trying to reach a positive solution is similar in nearly all circumstances. It will increase your chances for a positive outcome. However, you need to go into the process with realistic expectations. Many poor leaders do not respond well to having their methods questioned. So part of what you will be doing is preparing yourself for what you will do if it doesn't go well. That doesn't mean you should shrink from the task, especially if interaction with your leader is causing a violation of your values, the erosion of your confidence, or the undermining of your ability to achieve success in your work. You need to move forward. Here is how I suggest you proceed. 1. Consider whether you might actually be the problem. It's often easy to point out all the things that someone else is doing wrong, but when we do that, we sometimes neglect to examine ourselves to see what we are doing wrong. If I want to try to solve a problem with someone else, I need first to own up to my part in it and work to fix it. So before you start looking at what's wrong with your leader, first determine what's wrong with you. 2. Determine whether you have specific evidence to support your opinion. Before you decide to meet with your leader, you need to be sure the conflict or problem you see is based on solid evidence, not merely your feelings, not hearsay from someone else, not conjecture. Exactly what actions has your leader taken that are wrong? What specific words did you hear your leader say that were offensive or derogatory? Be specific and try to examine them rationally, without emotion. If you can't be specific, you may be wrong in your assessment of the situation. Why it's important to be specific. The higher the stakes, the more important it is that you have solid, specific evidence. The more important the message, the more important it is to give evidence. The more important the person, the more important it is to give evidence. The more important the timing, the more important it is to give evidence. 3. Assess your influence and credibility with your leader. You can be right and have all your facts lined up, but if you have no influence with your leader, you may not get anywhere. Even if what you say is correct, if you have little credibility in the eyes of your leader, the perception may be that your observations have no truth. So before you try to do anything to address the issue, you need to figure out where you stand with him or her. What kind of clout do you have? If you're not sure where you stand, talk to your coworkers. Ask them how much weight they think your words carry with the boss. If you have some degree of credibility, your leader might be willing to listen when you have difficult or negative things to say. 4. Think through every possible outcome. When most people are unhappy with their leader and their situation at work, they go to their coworkers to complain. By planning to talk to your leader instead, you are trying to do the right thing. But you should have the discussion with your leader only if you are willing to accept the outcome. That means you need to take the time to think about all the different responses your leader might give you and determine what you would do in every instance. If you put in the time, think things through, anticipate the possible reactions of your leader, and know what you will do in any given situation, you are as prepared as you can be. 5. Make a decision to act. At this point you have a decision to make. To do things the right way, you need to either take action or accept your situation as it is. If you decide not to take action, move on and don't say anything negative to others about your situation. Never complain about what you allow. If you do, that puts you in the wrong. If you are in a situation that's bad for you, you need to act. 6. Ask to speak with your leader privately. One of the worst mistakes you can make with difficult leaders is to criticize them or call them out publicly. That always turns into a lose-lose proposition. Just as you would hope that your leader would take you aside to share criticism, you should do the same with him or her. 7. Meet, outline your complaint, and seek a collaborative solution. When you meet with your leader, your goal should not be to vent or get even. The point is not to complain. The point is to seek a positive resolution. Present your evidence in a way that is as positive, non-threatening, and non-accusatory as possible. Explain why you find it difficult to work and get your job done, and ask if there is anything that you and your leader can do to resolve the situation and work together more positively. If you are honest, yet treat your leader with respect, at the end of the discussion you can walk away from the meeting with your integrity intact, no matter what the outcome is. Hopefully you and your leader will be able to agree upon a course of action that will serve both of you well. If your leader refuses to accept responsibility, becomes defensive, or proposes something you're not sure you can agree to, ask for time to think it over. You can always meet again later to try again for a positive solution. If he or she suggests something that you know is good and right, that's great. Move forward with it. 8. Determine whether you should stay or it's time to move on. You will have to make a decision after you meet with your leader. Will you stay or will you go? Maybe your leader says he will change. If that turns out to be true, great. Maybe he says he will not change. Are you willing to live with that? Maybe the conversation you had with your leader did further damage to the relationship. In the end you may not be able to change the people around you, but you can change the people you choose to be around. If you're still having a hard time trying to decide whether to stay or go, ask yourself this question: if I weren't already working here, knowing what I know now, would I want to become part of this organization? If the answer is no, it's time to go. If the answer is, I don't know, ask yourself again in 6 months. If the answer is yes, stay and learn how to work with your leader. 9. If you decide you can stay, give your best and publicly support your leader. If you think that you might want to stay and keep working with your leader, you need to ask yourself 2 crucial questions. Will I be able to add value? Will I be able to stay true to myself? If you cannot answer yes to both of those questions, it would be better for you to leave. But if you can add value and stay true to yourself, you need to publicly support your leader. Stay quiet about the negative things you know about him or her. When you're tempted to say something negative, say something nice instead. And if you need to discuss a problem or address a difficulty, do it behind closed doors. You should never do anything that compromises your integrity, but you need to remain supportive after the discussion. How would you work with a difficult leader who doesn't like you? It's difficult to work with someone you think doesn't like you, especially when it's your leader. Most people don't respond to it well. They often do one of the following: hide from the person. Many people go into avoidance mode. There isn't direct conflict, but when we spend our energy hiding, we lose momentum. Hinder the person. We don't do anything directly destructive. We just make sure not to be very cooperative. This hurts the team and causes us to be unfocused. Harm the person. The worst of all responses is to try to punish or harm the person who doesn't like us. That causes us to lose integrity. Instead, you need to take the high road. You cannot control your leader's response to you. He or she may never love working with you. But you can do everything in your power to make sure that you are not the cause of the problem. You do that by processing your emotions. Over time, if your negative emotions are left unchecked and allowed to brew, they will overflow into every area of your working, and maybe also your private life. These negative emotions can influence our decision-making, taint how we view relationships, and affect how we lead our people. For that reason we need to feel our emotions regularly. We must acknowledge how we feel, work through any hurt feelings, and move on. Looking for common ground. Everyone sees the world from their own unique perspective. Whenever and wherever possible, look for points of agreement with your leader. And when you find them, focus on those things you have in common rather than the differences that set you apart. If you are united in a common goal, start there. Being consistently pleasant. Have you ever heard the phrase, kill them with kindness? People often soften if you stay constant when they are not, when you are sincere, kind, helpful, and pleasant despite their choices and behavior. And remember, as poet Khalil Gibran asserted, tenderness and kindness are not signs of weakness and despair, but manifestations of strength and resolution. Solving problems. One of the best ways to endear yourself to a leader is to be a good problem solver. It's easy to see and point out problems. It's much more difficult, and valuable, to offer and implement solutions. Adding value to others always works to your advantage. If you increase your value by becoming good at offering and implementing solutions, it will make your boss's job easier, and his or her attitude toward you might soften. Going the extra mile. If you want to please people, go above and beyond expectations. Most of the differences between average and top people can be explained in 3 words, and then some. If you do your job and then some, people will be drawn to you, maybe even your boss. Sometimes people dislike another person without good reasons. That could be the case with you and your leader. All you can do is try to connect on common ground and be a great employee. It's difficult to dislike someone who consistently treats people with kindness, does the job well, and goes above and beyond what is expected. If you do all those things and your leader still doesn't like you, you can take comfort in knowing that you are probably not the cause of the problem. How would you work with a difficult leader who lacks vision? Much dissatisfaction and discouragement are caused by absence of vision. Without it, leaders lack the ability to convey motivation, drive, and purpose to their people. If you are going to stay and work under a leader who lacks vision, what can you do? Tap into the organization's larger vision. If you work for a larger organization in which your boss is only one leader among many, you can tap into the vision of the organization itself. When the vision of the organization is clear, the vision of any individual leader, team, or department within the organization should contribute to that larger vision anyway. It should work within that context. How does your team or department support that larger vision of the organization? In what way does your team or department add the most value? How can you advance the purpose of the organization in a significant way? How can you make it better? Identify a vision for the organization and share it with your leader. If you work in a smaller organization where your leader is the top leader, you may want to work at discovering and developing a vision for the organization that will help it succeed. Once you've done that, you can share it with your leader, and if your level of influence is strong, your leader might embrace it and buy into it. If you do this, just be sure that the vision is consistent with the values and goals you know your leader possesses. If it's not, your leader will probably not welcome it. Develop your own sense of purpose. Purpose gives you drive. It shows you a destination. It paints a picture of your future. It energizes you. And it makes obstacles and problems seem small in comparison to its importance. You cannot allow your leader's lack of vision to keep you from making progress in life. Connect with and develop your own purpose. As long as you are doing work consistent with it, you won't be as bothered by your leader's lack of vision for the organization. You will just need to be certain that you are doing what you were created to do. Vision is critical to good leadership. I have yet to meet a great leader who lacks vision. Any organization whose top leadership lacks vision is in trouble. Further down the leadership chain, is it ideal to have leaders without vision? No. But it is possible for someone to lead up in the organization to influence a leader without vision. It isn't easy, but it is possible. How would you work with a difficult leader who is indecisive and inconsistent? If you can see solutions within arm's reach, yet your leader prevents you from implementing them, you will be continually frustrated. What can you do to deal with this situation? Ask permission to make the decisions. Leadership decisions should always be made at the lowest possible level. The people on the front lines usually know the problems and solutions best. They are also closest to the problems and can usually act quickly. So if you know what decisions should be made, ask your leaders if they are willing to let you make them. If they seem unsure, offer to start small with minor decisions that won't make or break the team. In that way you can develop credibility and a positive track record. If they say yes and you're willing to take responsibility for your own decisions and actions, the problem is solved. Offer to help your leaders process decisions. If you are good at decision making and can see solutions readily, but your leaders don't want to release you to act independently, offer to process decisions with them privately. Gather information and present it to them. Define each problem as specifically as you can. Offer a variety of solutions, taking into account their values, motivations, priorities, and goals. Explain the implications of every decision as you see them. Then ask for a decision. If they are unwilling to come to a conclusion, ask for feedback. Try to find which solutions they prefer and which they dismiss out of hand. In this way you can find out how they think and try to narrow down the options. If they still won't make a decision, try to get them to commit to a deadline. Then circle back later to try to land the decision. Ask what you are to do when a decision must be made. If you have leaders who will not allow you to either make the decisions or help them make them, your only course of action is to be very direct with them and privately ask the question, what do you want me to do when a decision must be made but you aren't making it? Likewise, if you work with inconsistent leaders, you must ask a similar question when they change their minds. Previously you decided that, how do you want me to proceed now that you've decided this? By asking these questions, you are putting the ball back in your leader's court, where it belongs. They are the ones responsible for making decisions. But if they don't take responsibility, at least you have a course of action that they have asked you to take in those situations, and when they change their minds again, you can say with integrity, the last time we talked, you said you wanted me to do this, and that's what I've done. How would you work with a difficult leader who has attitude and character problems? One of the great dangers in working for leaders who have attitude and character problems is that they are continually trying to drag you down to wherever they are. Bad attitudes are contagious. It's difficult to remain positive when people around you are continually negative. And people who cheat or cut corners in their lives will inevitably ask you to do the same, and they won't want to take no for an answer when you refuse to share their methods. It will be a constant struggle for you to retain a positive attitude and maintain your values. If you are determined to stay in such an environment, the best thing you can try to do is lift people to a higher level. Here's how you can do that: live on a higher level yourself. You don't want to allow others' compromises to influence you to compromise your own values. But that alone is not enough. One of your goals as a leader and person should always be to be a positive influence on others in the critical areas of attitude and character. If your leaders aren't strong in these areas, try to lead up and help them as well as your peers and those you lead. Hold yourself to the highest possible standard. You cannot take people where you haven't been. As you gain a reputation for being positive and reliable by maintaining high standards for yourself, your credibility will increase, and so will your influence. You may have opportunities to help others to realize there's a better way to do things and to make better choices. Separate yourself from negative influences as much as possible. Trying to help others to be positive and honest using influence alone doesn't always work. People have been given free will and make their own choices in life. If you've done your best to help your leaders but you start to feel their influence negatively affecting your attitude or values, separate yourself from them as much as you can. If time and distance don't seem to be helping, consider leaving your position. No job is worth trading your integrity for. Put things in writing whenever possible. To a great extent you can avoid a bad attitude. However, you need to protect yourself from someone who has no integrity. The best way to do that is to leave so you don't become party to anything unethical. But if you can't leave right away, or if you need to stay for some reason, put as much communication as you can in writing. You will want to be able to show evidence of your right doing if at some point your boss is accused of wrongdoing. How would you work with a difficult leader who acts like a bully? Having bosses who act like bullies makes life difficult. Nobody likes to feel pushed around. If you decide to stay in such an environment, your best bet is to try to let what they say roll off you. Don't buy into what they're selling. That's not going to be easy, so here are some suggestions to help you. 1. Be confident in your own value. Leaders cannot devalue you without your permission. Unpleasant bosses can say anything they want to you or about you, but if it isn't true, you don't need to buy into it. You prevent that by seeing the value in yourself and being confident in it. You have value. Every person does. You have talents and skills that can add value to others. You have resources and opportunities that no one else has. You have intrinsic value simply because you are a human being. You need to own these things. Even if you do everything right, there's no guarantee that others won't treat you wrong. People can decide they don't like you with no legitimate reason. You can't control that. Develop thick skin, and your critics won't bother you as much. 2. Do not accept blame that doesn't belong to you. Bullies are always looking for someone to blame. Don't allow them to blame you for things you're not responsible for. If something is your fault, own up to it. If it's not, decline to take the blame. 3. Refuse to be a victim. One of the reasons some people allow themselves to be bullied is that they feel powerless to do anything about what's happening to them. They believe that they're victims. It's important for you not to allow yourself to think that way. If you know who you are and you take a proactive approach to life, you are less likely to feel like a victim. You can't do everything, but you can do some things. You can't prevent others from treating you poorly, but you can decide how you will respond. How would you work with a difficult leader who always plays it safe? Many people are afraid of change, of risk, of failure. They don't want to let go of the known because they fear the unknown. These people's fears and worries are often overblown. Many times they're not based in reality. Yet these worries stop them from being productive and successful just the same. If you have leaders who always play it safe, you may be able to help them. Try doing the following. Put yourself in their shoes. To put yourself into your leader's shoes, ask yourself 3 questions. Where have they been? This relates to their experiences. What kinds of things have happened to them that may be causing them to be afraid of change? What do they feel? This relates to their emotions. Try to find out not only how they feel but how they process their emotions and deal with things like stress. What do they want? This relates to expectations. If you know what they want and help them get it, maybe you'll get what you want too. If you want to understand your leaders and work with them, you must see things from their perspective. That's the best way to help them and yourself. Acknowledge their feelings. Leaders who avoid risk do so generally because they do not have the confidence to believe in their own success. Don't dismiss those feelings of fear and inadequacy. Instead, acknowledge them. And as far as you are able, help them to achieve small wins. This can help them build their confidence. Help them take action. Sometimes what people need are facts. They need to see the greater value of a specific change. Yes, all of us can be hurt. All of us can and at times will fail. But progress always takes risk. Help your leaders weigh the potential gains and losses of taking action against the potential gains and losses of not taking it. If you can take the worst, take the risk. If your leader has poor leadership skills, how can you run the organization in a respectful way? Often people who work for bosses with poor leadership skills try to fight the situation. That's an approach that is not likely to work. Instead, they need to try to help their bosses to succeed, because if we want to be successful, we must try to help others to succeed. We can't undermine our leaders and expect our team to be successful. And if they're smart, they will understand that they cannot make it without us. We need each other. 1. Understand your leader. When people have asked me about working for poor leaders, I often find that they don't really know those leaders. They are so preoccupied by what their leaders aren't doing right that they don't even try to find out who they are. That's a mistake. To help yourself, you need to help them. To help them, you need to know what they care about. Ask your leader. What is your heart? These are the things your leader cares about. As far as it's within your power, provide them. What is your hope? These are the things your leader wants to do. As far as they align with your values, promote them. What causes you hurt? These are the things your leader wants to avoid. As far as you're able, protect your leader from them. How can I help? There are many things your leader wants to do but cannot do alone. Your task is to partner with them to get those things done. As you get to know your leaders and endeavor to help them, you will start to look at them as people first and leaders second. Your communication with them will improve. So will your connection. You may even begin to enjoy working together. And when we contribute to the success of our bosses, they are put in a position to rise. As they do, guess whom they want to bring along with them? The people who help them win. 2. Understand your support role. Although your leadership skills may be greater than those of the people you work for, if you want to be successful, you have to play your part. You've been hired to play a supporting role. Do your best to fulfill it with excellence. 3. Bloom where you're planted. Few things impress leaders, whether they are strong or weak, like a worker who is both a starter and a finisher. If you have initiative and are a self-starter doing your work with joy, everyone will want to work with you. If you follow through on tasks and commitments, people will give you greater and greater responsibilities. The measure of a person is not what he or she says in the staff meeting, but rather what he or she does when the meeting is over. 4. Rise above others with a right attitude. It's hard for most people who work for weak leaders to maintain a great attitude. If you can be positive and supportive while all those around you are negative or complain, you will stand out and people will be drawn to you. Remember, good employees aren't people with a certain set of circumstances, they are people with a certain set of attitudes. 5. Succeed on their terms. When you're working in the middle of an organization with leaders above you, your success usually takes place on someone else's terms. You are not in charge of the definition of success. You cannot rewrite the rules of the game. The pathway to success has been set by others. The only thing you can do is succeed on the terms of others. This idea may frustrate you, but the reality is that everyone is accountable to someone and must succeed on others' terms. In the end, the only thing you can do is lead your life. If you don't, others will, by determining what will happen to you. Life's greatest rewards come from your inner self, from the choices you make, from how you decide to live under whatever circumstances you find yourself in.